it's been very, very good. You know, it's very lucrative. They always pay their money up front, and let's face it, if they don't like the apartment, well, they've already paid the money anyway, so you can't really lose out.
Well, they could always trash your apartment.
That's why we go over there for 3 months of the year, basically to make sure. But we take a very, very hefty deposit, and it's one bedroom apartment and one 2-bedroom apartment. There's not much they can do, and to be quite honest with you, we've got neighbours there as well who look out for us. So we've never had a bad experience in 15 years. And like I said, we put any old tat furniture in there. And like I said, they've paid their money, so when they get there, if they don't like it, well, you know, there's not much they can do, really.
What a lovely host. Tatty old furniture.
Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I've stayed in places like that.
You know, they don't really care what the furniture's like when they're there.
Stinking, dusty furniture.
But don't you think, Mr. T, that actually if you provide a clean home up to a certain standard, people are more likely to look after it? I think one of the problems with some of these...
No, not at all. I mean, I believe in making a return on my investment. And if I'm going to start spending hundreds or thousands of pounds on an apartment which I've got in Cyprus, that's going to bite into my investment. They're there for the beach. They're not there to laze around my apartment all day long. They're just there to sleep. So, you know, what the heck, really?
All right, Mr. T, thank you very much. Doc, I reckon the nicer the apartment or the villa is, the better chance you've got of it being looked after. I remember looking at some villas in Florida that were built in the late 80s. This was about 6 years ago. They were built in about 1988, and you could just tell by the look of them, in fact, that everything was kind of Florida pink, and that kind of aqua blue they used everywhere. And the shower curtains were ripped, and the bathroom tiles were a bit chipped. The worktops in the kitchen had scratch marks where knives had been in and all that, and they just looked tired. And I thought, if you've got a nice apartment or a nice villa, people are going to look after it better, aren't they?
I would have thought so, yeah. That's the way it would work for me.
Okay, so holiday properties, 01983822002. Is this something you just would not do? Did you get caught in a timeshare fiasco? Have you bought a property that maybe you've never even been to? I spoke to a lady the other day that had a lovely property in the south of France. She's never been there because she just hasn't got the time to go. And when she did have a bit of time to go, she couldn't actually afford to take the family because it was very expensive.
I know what a lot of people have done. I've met people in the past who haven't been able to afford to have a house in Britain, but have bought one in France. So they've lived over here, maybe they're in some sort of tied accommodation to a job, you know, like teaching or whatever. And so they buy a house in France, so they know they've got at least one foot on the property ladder. They get a lot of holidays, so they can go out there as much as they can. But I just wonder, it must seem strange having your only home, or any home, in a foreign land.
Well, apparently all the bargains, and someone told me that all the bargains in France have gone, all the lovely barn conversions or barns that have been able to be converted, all those lovely old French farmhouses have all gone. I find it hard to believe, but the Brits have snapped them all up. We could talk about that. We could talk about fights. Now, I'm in my early 40s now, and when I was 17 or 18, you couldn't go out on a Friday or a Saturday night without there being a fight somewhere.
A rumble.
A rumble, yeah. So what about now? There aren't fights, which is good because it must mean that it's violent. But I think when society is violent now, it's more violent with, I mean, you've only got to put on the local news. I'm not talking about the national, the local TV, regional news, and find out that these 18-year-old lads have been stabbed here, there, and everywhere. And it's absolutely dreadful. What happened to the good old-fashioned punch-up? I know it wasn't balsa wood furniture. I know people got some nasty gashes and some nasty cuts, but it's not like it was. 01983822002. Do you remember a good old fight? And the other thing is, this song by Natasha Bedingfield, it's called I Want to Have Your Babies. It's her single now. Do you really want this to be played at breakfast time on British radio? Do you want an 8 or a 9-year-old girl singing this as she eats her cornflakes? Do you think I'm being a prude?
Yes.
You do?
I think it's harmless saying. I mean, you know, has a woman never said to you, I want to have your babies?
I'm talking about 8, 9-year-old, 11-year-old girls singing this in front of their parents as it's played on the breakfast show of various radio. It's not appropriate.
You remember, you know, I used to sing, give me a man after midnight. I used to sing If You're Glad to Be Gay, the old Tom Robinson. I love that song. It didn't mean I was gay.
Did not worry, mother.
I was not corrupted by ABBA and give me a man after midnight, nor was I corrupted by Sing If You're Glad to Be Gay. I love both songs.
Those are our subjects. If you've got anything you would like to chuck in, you can. 01983 822 002. Right, Doc, we've got Mark Watson here. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the phone-in.
Hello, Alex. Well, I only phoned you up in the break to see if you got that Herbie Hancock song.
Oh, I did get the Herbie Hancock song that we were looking for in the record race, Bet Your Love. I thought you were... I'll tell you why I thought you were phoning, because you've done years and years and years in the nightclubs, and I was saying that when I was about 17 or 18, there would always be a good old punch-up or a good old fight. Maybe not every Friday and every Saturday. All the doormen would pile in and, you know, take the punters out the back and beat the baddies up and let the goodies go. We don't get that now. Even though we live in a more violent society with more fatal shootings and more fatal stabbings and people being stupid with glasses and bottles, we don't get those punch-ups, and I wondered why.
Well, they certainly do exist. I mean, you put me right on the spot here because I wasn't even listening to the phone-in, to be honest. One of the things to remember is that the doormen now are regulated by the government. They're licensed and trained by the government agency called the SIA. So their standards, their professional standards, have gone up straight away. So maybe in the old days they used to did take you out the back and give you a good kicking, but that can't happen now because, you know, for them to lose their license, and it costs a lot of money for them to obtain their license in the first place.
And the guys have to buy their own licenses. The clubs don't provide them with a license, do they?
No, I mean, it comes down to individual arrangement, whether the club does pay for their training or their license. But I think a lot of the door supervisors have to buy their own training and have to buy their own license, because after all, it is their license. They've got it for 3 years. They then can use that license anywhere that requires a security operative.
Okay, now what about, I suppose another factor in this is CCTV. In the old days, it would be your word against theirs.
Yeah.
And now CCTV plays a part in this. So maybe people aren't so willing to get stuck in, whether they're a nightclub punter, a police officer, or a doorman. Sorry, I still call them doormen, but you know what I mean.
Well, I certainly think that CCTV does have an impact on what people think, because it's always used as a good defence. If people are kicking off with you, argumentative or anything else, you've only got to point at the camera and say, well, you know, that's your downfall because you're being recorded. What was the installation of the council-run CCTV in places like Sandown Ride in Newport that has the 24-hour operator? That's very useful when you get put up in court as well. But the new sort of age of 18-year-olds, so the 18 and 19-year-olds that are coming through now sort of thing, are of a particular type, very chavvy indeed. And
do nightclubs welcome them, or do they think, well, this is what 18 and 19-year-olds are like now, we've got to let them in?
Well, no, I think what clubs, I mean, certainly what our club does is we have minimum standards of what you can wear. You have to have ID in the form of a passport or a driving licence. And I think if you start putting things in place to that level, it does weed out a lot of people. We don't let in ripped jeans, trainers, no hats or no hoodies. So, you know, certainly you're getting rid of the majority of the customers and allowing people that do still dress up smart to come out on a Friday or Saturday night. And, I mean, there's lots of 18 and 19-year-olds that are very decent people. But certainly over the years, you can see a degeneration of 18-year-olds that are coming through. They hang around in groups. They can't be bothered to even wash from one day to another. They wear the same clothes day in, day out. And they're basically going to be our future, which is going to cause us a lot of problems. It's not unique on the Isle of Wight. It's the same across the country. You go out on a Friday night, have a look at Ryde, have a look at Newport, have a look at Sandown, have a look at Shanklin, at the 16-year-olds, what they're getting up to, and you think, good God, that's our future.
Do you think, Mark, and I'll ask you this as well, Doc, that maybe the 18 and 19-year-olds now aren't as hard as they were in the late 70s and 80s? Maybe there's no need for them to be as hard. Maybe because they're stupid enough to carry weapons out. I don't know. But when I look around now, I can't spot the local hard nuts. Maybe it's because when you're younger, you know who they are, and you decide to either hang around with them or stay away from them or whatever. But do you think they're less tough now than they were?
That's quite a difficult one. I think nowadays, I mean, if you look at the local, as you were saying, hard nuts that are around the Sandown Shanklin area, they're actually in jail at the moment. So I think the detection rates are getting better. And I know the legal system stinks in a lot of respects, but it does, in the end, favour the person that's been beaten up repeatedly by a certain person, and they do tend to go through the court system, but the trouble being then the courts let the country down every single time when it comes to sentencing.
Yeah.
So that's another problem in itself. But yeah, I suppose if you